Hey, it's Freitag. In this podcast, we interview business owners in New Hampshire and beyond to get their perspective on work, growth, and of course, the weekend. Join our host, Freitag marketing owner Jan Ziegler, as he interviews fascinating guests. We hope you'll enjoy this episode.
Welcome to another episode of It's Freitag. My name is Jan, and today I have Julie Schoelzel with me. She's the director of regional marketing for the region here, and is the head of Magnify Monadnock, which is part of the Greater Monadnock Collaborative. These are so many words, Julie.
It is. It's many words, but you nailed it. You got it right. So good for you.
Well, welcome, and thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
I always start with, how the hell did you end up here? And I think with you, it's also really an interesting story because you come from, the city that rules them all. And you worked in a startup there. I think we're the third employee or something like that?
I was the first outside hire beyond the founders.
There we go. And so you did that for a decade or so.
14 years.
And then you dropped everything, came to the Monadnock Region, and you decided it's a great place to promote. Mm-hmm. How did that all happen?
So I'm the youngest of 6 kids, and I have an older brother, Michael, with whom I'm very close. He's like my best friend in a lot of ways. I sort of joke that he raised me 30%. My parents did the rest, but he was a strong influence. And he was down in New York too, and he went to college, and he met a young woman who is from Chesterfield. And they lived in New York for a while, and eventually they moved up here and they got married here. And so the first time I visited was actually his wedding, and I was 18 years old. I have very fond memories of them getting married at the Cathedral of the Pines, and then the rehearsal dinner was at Papagallo's, and the reception, I swear, was at the Best Western. It's just, it's really funny to think back that that's my introduction. I remember my mom was like, "You're obviously packing for yourself." And I was a bridesmaid, so I was so focused on making sure I had the dress, but I didn't pack any other clothes. And so there was a funny story where all I had was this incredibly offensive Nirvana t-shirt that my grandma was like, "What are you wearing?" It's just, anyway. So this is my introduction to the region. And then I would come up and visit quite a bit through the years and just really liked it up here. We would do sort of a mix of Brattleboro and Keene. And I love the difference in the two and just the really recognizably different vibe that they both have. And then it's a really great way to get introduced to a place because he raised his kids here and I got to see what that was like versus many of my friends who were having kids and even another sibling in New York. And I kind of got to compare and contrast a little bit. Both have amazing opportunities, obviously, but what I really liked about up here was it was different than you would expect coming from where I come from. Such a strong emphasis on arts. They have 2 kids and they're pretty different kids. One is really artistic. She's a wonderful singer. She's a really talented singer. Her name is Sophie. People will be connecting the dots and they'll be like, "I know Sophie." And she got to be who she is here. Just a totally creative, just kind of out there person, and then went to Wheaton, just had a really good experience. Whereas their second daughter is, really academic, sort of sciencey, and she got to thrive in the same way. Was even there's this thing called the Junior Senate, and every state picks 2 kids to go down to Washington. She was one of those kids, and it was just really just a neat way to see what it's like to raise a family here. So was really drawn to the area. Then my sister moved up here, who I'm also really close with, maybe 10 years before I did. So it was oh my God, everybody's moving up there. But I'm in New York. I'm at my startup. Startups are really, really fun and great. And it's really hard when you are at a startup to go from being a really small team where you can just be crazy. You kind of have to be in a way to grow. And then you grow and you bring in more people and you really have to adapt to having more people and a more structured culture. People are really expressive about their needs all of a sudden. And I started there and I hadn't even met my husband. I didn't have kids. Then I get married and I have kids. It's a really tough culture for accommodating that. And it went from being something that I just really loved to something that was sort of slowly killing me. And there were many days where I would wake up, catch a train into the city because we moved to the suburbs eventually. And there would be days I would never see my kids because I would be gone and they're babies before they're up, and then they're asleep by the time I get home. And so I just knew I wanted this different quality of life. My husband was working at one of those heavily funded solar companies out west. And we knew it was going to go belly up. Like, it was just like, there's no way this can last. It did eventually. And we were like, this is when we do it. We move now or it never happens. I quit my job, which completely freaked out my husband, but he got a job offer an hour later for remote work. And we made it happen in 2017. My kids were 3 and 1.
Okay. So basically you moved here basically pre-COVID. And then, lucky you for not having to do COVID in the city.
I know. I think about that all the time.
Dodged a bullet. And so I think it's really interesting because, clearly you've been, without aging you, you've been around the area for a long time now.
I don't mind being aged. I'm 48.
Yeah, but you know what I mean? Like, you've been around the area, in and out for 15 years before you moved here.
Yeah.
But you're not from here, which I think is really unique because I feel like a lot of people like me, at some point, they just end up here and then they're here. Or they grew up here. When you think about your visits, what was your favorite thing when you came up here?
I used to love going to the Brattleboro Farmers Market because it was I felt like it was almost staged for New Yorkers. It couldn't possibly really be like this. But it was. But it was just, obviously great food. And the food trucks there were really fun. I don't know if they still do that. I haven't been there in a while. And then I always loved, we would always do something in nature. And I always loved that. And I really loved, honestly, getting to see my nieces doing whatever it was that they were doing, usually at Keene High. I just think that Keene High, and just sort of young people here in general, it's such an interesting place because you could be there like a rural kid. I don't know. I feel like they make space for everyone. I just remember a couple years ago, I was driving down, what is that, Road Archway or whatever that has the high school on it. And there was a young man, but dressed totally goth and eye makeup and the whole thing, walking into school, chatting with a guy wearing a football jersey. And they're just chatting and having a great time. And I just remember thinking that's pretty unexpected. I don't think that that's what people think here, about living in a rural part of New Hampshire. And so anyway, those are my favorite memories.
Yeah. Okay. And then, so you moved here, and then was your first job the director of marketing job, or did you do something else first?
No, I didn't work for a while. I tried that. That was tough. I have to say, I love obviously my children and being home with my children, but it's just a 180. And I kept trying to note patterns. And my husband would be like, I don't think that you can do a spreadsheet about the day. Let it go. And so
you're like, can I make a pivot table out of the week here?
I'm kept trying, how do we make this better? And there obviously are things that you could do, right? But children are people. And that's what I learned is they are people and I need to let them be. And whatever. So I did eventually get a part-time job with a company called 365 Cycles, which used to have a bike shop downtown, but also does millions of dollars in sales online. And I was sort of an admin assistant and just help the CEO with whatever and that stuff. And I worked there for about a year. I really liked Ben, who ran that. You should connect with Ben, young guy, super smart, really interesting. But it was on a personal story, both my parents have passed away, and they've been passed away for a while. My mom died in 2010 and my dad died in 2012. These were hugely stressful situations. And so I'm pretty adverse to stress. I don't want any more stress than I absolutely need to have. I've lived that. That was terrible. And so COVID started. It was March 13th and I called Ben and I was I'm out. I was I know. And I was I know they're saying 2 weeks, but I can't handle this. And he was really cool about it because I had a kindergartner and I had to do all the school stuff. So that was the first job. And then I didn't work during COVID. And what I ended up doing was my kids didn't do school. I didn't want them to do Zoom school. So I pulled them out and I homeschooled them And that was cool because I could be a mom and use my spreadsheets.
Yeah, I was just going to say that there's like now is a reason like we're tracking this on a like daily performance.
Totally. I was so afraid that when they went back to school, like they would be like, what happened? Like these kids don't know anything. So I was like, yeah, I was good to have purpose.
Yeah.
And then they went back to school. The summer before they were going back to school, I knew they were going back to school. I saw this job posting on Indeed that was pretty funny. It was like checked both part-time and full-time. It was like regional marketing project manager.
That was the clue for this to be a 100-hour job.
Yeah.
They're like, here's like a full-time job and a part-time job for you.
Oh my God, that's hilarious. Yes, I should have gotten it then. But it was also the clue, like, they don't know. And started doing it part-time, but then pretty quickly made the jump to full-time.
And so, I mean, basically, because I think the initial funding was a grant, right? So, like, you basically started the project, like the whole regional marketing.
Yes, it was awesome. And that's something I love that. Like, I love that startup feeling of just like, we might or might not, like, who knows what's going to happen. And I think people put too much, this is this little sidebar, but like people put too much trust in that a corporate job is all going to work out. Like, you never know anything. But anyway, but I like that startup.
Or government jobs.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Like, but I like that, like, kind of feeling of like, it's do or die. And so, yeah, I got really lucky in that they had gotten this EDA grant and they called it a project manager, and they had already hired the agency that they were going to work with to sort of develop the brand and create a marketing plan. And then my role really became even more expansive because then it was like I was coordinating the making the website and the Thrive Guide and all the content that goes with it and all that stuff. So it started, I think they saw it as like, oh, it's just like 15 hours a week kind of, and then they were like, oh well, maybe.
And now you're 4 years into that?
Yeah.
And I mean, it's now obviously it's like part of the marketing landscape, right? I mean, it's a central organization that kind of like puts everything together for regional marketing with the chamber. Do you think like you guys have achieved that like initial goal of putting Monadnock Region on the map in some way, shape, or form?
Yeah, I mean, we're not working with Super Bowl budgets here, so I think with the budget that we had, we did a phenomenal job. I really do. I think that we did a couple of different things that were really successful. I think our website's awesome. I think it's well thought out, easy to use. If you've never come here, I think it gives you like a good idea of what it's like to visit, live, learn, or work here. And so, yeah, I mean, I feel good. But I don't think that, everyone's talking about their next trip to the Monadnock region, down in like Dumbo, Brooklyn. But I think with the budget that we had, we've had some noticeable successes. I mean, we know for sure that we brought more people here. And then we know for sure we've brought hundreds of thousands of people to the website. We know for sure that we sent job applicants to apply for certain jobs, which is really the crux of this, is really the whole idea behind this is to promote tourism here in the hopes that people move here. Also, though, promote tourism or what it's like to live here to sort of remind people currently here why it is so great here and to highlight those things.
And I think that is actually, is this very powerful point that isn't really the center of attention, but it is like the Thrive Guide shows, I think, for example, like the guide in print or whether it's your socials, it really shows off the region really well for people here. And I think it instills like a certain amount of pride in people that like, oh, this is that. Oh, this is my, I don't know, neighbor's cousin's business that's like featured here in a little article. Like I think like when I moved here and like my parents was like, where are you moving? I like send them the PDF to the Thrive Guide like from 2 years ago, I think, because I was like, well, there you go. That's
even the advertisers in it, right, tell the story on top of it.
And I think that's there is, I think, without this being like a major destination region where everybody's like, this is where we're from and we're so proud to be from the region, I think a lot of people, like, it instills some pride in a lot of people here. And I think a lot of businesses from being like use it in their taglines that they're from the Monadnock region, and like to make that term even much more used than maybe previously, because I still think it's a washy term of like where the Monadnock region ends and starts, and like, does that really make sense? But I think it's just much better than like, I'm from Cheshire County. Like, no offense to the county, but
yeah. Although much love to Cheshire County.
Yeah,
but I think it's when we were sort of deciding on the branding and everything, there was some hesitancy around even using the word Monadnock because it's a hard word to say. I was up in Canada this past weekend promoting the Monadnock region, and people would see the sign and sort of struggle to get it out. But locally at the chamber, it's something like 25% of our businesses have the name Monadnock in it.
I was just going to say,
it's
like,
certainly
it's like
appropriate.
There's, I think you cannot start another business like that with the name Monadnock anything, whether it's a dental, lawyer, plumber, like, it's all taken. Like,
that's
and
true.
I think
I don't think there is like Monadnock marketing.
There you go, Monadnock Marketing. It's like the least creative marketing agency in the region. But I think, right, like it is in so many business names. It is in so many, like, half the nonprofits, they're named Monadnock something. And so I think...
Yeah, you could do like M, any letter, and then S, right, for services. Like just like, you'll get it eventually.
No, and I think that speaks for the brand that the mountain has, right? Even though, I think obviously there's a certain amount of people that climbs the mountain all the time, but most of us do it maybe once a year, right? And other than on my drive in on like Route 12, I never actually see it. And so, but I think it's like the symbol that we have, because what's the alternatives? Like the Connecticut River, it's Spofford Lake. Like,
no, it's it's awesome. It's really a good representative for us, I think. And even what it means, right? The mountain that stands alone.
Well, because it does. Because I think, that's what makes it special, right? It's like, if it was among 5 other mountains that are the same size, and like, it wouldn't be anything to write home about, because it's just one out of 5 mountains that we have. And put it in the White Mountains is a completely unremarkable mountain. So you now put it on the map, more or less. You what's in the future for the organization? Like, what is like the 2050 vision for the Monadnock region from the marketing's perspective?
So the goal really is I'm going to get into some boring stats, which I'm sure I've given you in the past, but there's a problem that we need to tackle now. So if this is successful, we will have alleviated this pain. But our businesses are really struggling to scale. They can't fill open positions. They're losing customers because they can't meet the demands because they just don't have enough workers. And if you go on Indeed and you do a search, you're going to see thousands of jobs open within 35 miles of Keene. Really hard hit sectors would be healthcare, education, and manufacturing. And we have another situation where nationally, right, people are just having fewer kids. And so there's been a pretty steep decline in our K through 12 enrollment. As much as 25% in certain cases. In the next 7-ish years, 30% of our workforce is going to retire. We don't have the young people to replenish it. Our main goal is to keep these businesses here and to help them find a workforce. And to do that by creating these campaigns, that sense of pride that you were talking about, getting people to stay, making sure that people who are here are aware of what's available to them. And then alternatively, getting people to come here and settle down and start their young lives here, so that we can sort of buffer what could potentially be a very painful period if we don't help fill these open positions. We will lose businesses. It's just a capitalist situation.
So I'm thinking about this just now, and as you know, I've spent a decent amount of time thinking about marketing a region, but really it needs to be like a doomsday campaign. Like, because I think, right, like when I just think about it, is like, when you put it that way, a deserted Main Street is really the future, because there's no people to staff the offices and nobody walking in the front door to buy there. Which I don't think, like, I think you have like this very polished campaign, like it's nice here, it's like we have so many nice things, which is all true, but it's actually much more serious than that.
Yeah, I agree with you on the doomsday marketing as far as like getting donors, right? Like, I need people to get this. Like, this is legit. We need to do this. You know, another stat that I find really interesting is that it's in Cheshire County, 3% of businesses have more than 100 employees, but they cover almost 40% of the wages. So they play this really outsized role in our economy. And they're also huge nonprofit supporters. And so we need them. And we want them to thrive, right? And they do cool stuff. Like, these are businesses that are producing things that we all use in our homes, or that play a pivotal role in our sort of, you know, homeland security. You know, there's just so many interesting things that are being done here. And, I really feel like we need to help them succeed.
Well, and I think there's probably, like, with a lot of these businesses, like especially in the manufacturing sector, where you have so many of them are getting sold to, you know, whether it's venture capital, they don't care to keep them here anymore. And so when they realize that it's harder to keep them than it is to move them, they're not going to have like the, you know, Troy residents, the emotional ties of like, I'm from Troy, my family's from Troy, I've had this business in Troy. We're not moving, even though it might be easier in Ohio.
Yeah. And
I think that's going to make, like, you really need to get that value proposition right for them. So I mean, what do you do?
So in 2050, we have a more diverse population in all ways, for sure, but certainly age-wise, right? We don't lean so heavily above the age of 55. And one thing that I love about this region that I think is really unique is we have a lot of opportunity for young people maybe not thinking about going to college, or just sort of not sure what their next steps are. And we have a lot of businesses that have really outstanding benefits. And I want to be known for this. I want to be like known as a place where anyone can get a start. Sure, you can come here, but you can also come here and be like, I'm doing it my way. I'm going to work for a couple of years. I'm going to save money. I'm not going to accrue debt. And then I'm going to work at a company that's going to pay for me to advance my education. Because that's what happens. They'll offset much of the cost of education, allow you to go to school while you're working there. And then, you know, you can become a plant manager at a plant that's, you know, has $1 billion contract. I mean, it's really a lot of opportunity here.
Yeah. And so isn't like the natural beauty that we like to talk about a lot, because it is very pretty here, isn't it actually a detriment to like our workforce case? Because while it is pretty here, apparently we're attracting a lot of older people that love retiring here and that, you know, buy a lot of houses with a lot of money. Like, I don't know, somewhere in Ohio, they don't have that problem because nobody wants to move there. Isn't that actually a problem?
I think it depends, right? I think there are a lot of young people who value the opportunity to be outdoors. And I think we have room to get really innovative with thinking about this, right? The space we're in today, 310 Marlborough, is a good example of thinking innovatively about what space can be. And so I think if we start thinking about the infrastructure that's needed so that a new generation can thrive here, we can optimize everyone who wants to enjoy the outdoors doing that, but also make it a place where young people can, you know, socialize more, can live in spaces that maybe are more roommate friendly, or like, you know, not so dependent on a separate kitchen, a separate, you know, all these, anyway, these kinds of things, but also have space for things like canoes, kayaks, paddleboards, you know, whatever it is, bikes.
Yeah,
right?
I just watched the WeWork documentary a couple of weeks ago, and I was like, the whole We Live concept really should have like a reincarnation in Keene. Like, maybe we could get the guy to.
Yeah, no, I don't want that guy coming to Keene. That's not who I'm out to recruit to Keene. But there is something to it of even cars. Like this is a generation that's like probably not like, I can't wait to buy my own car. Like. But if there was some way where they could, like, zip cars, access a fleet of zip cars. Anyway, I think there's a lot of room for innovation around this of, like, this is currently optimized for a certain demographic, and we could do some more.
I think a lot about actually zip cars here. I think would do so well, like car sharing here, because the limits are so clear defined. So like you wouldn't need a lot of cars in Keene to like have a high density of cars. Like I think about this all the time. I'm like, if only I had the money to buy 100 cars, because it would work, because you need the high density of cars and you would have it here in no time.
And a lot of people wouldn't need them all the time, right? Like
Because if you live downtown, you can get away with it, but you want to go to Hannaford's once a week because you don't want to buy at a co-op because it's too expensive or whatever, and then you need a car for that hour. And
yeah,
that's
or
it.
you whatever, you want to go to Spofford Lake, right? And it would be cool if it was like zip pickup trucks, frankly, so you could throw all your gear in there.
Fair. That's a good idea.
Yeah.
Should write a grant for it.
No, I have enough of my own grant writing I need to do, but I do think like that could be what differentiates us, because I think you're right. Like there is a certain element of this area that is really attractive to people who kind of have established wealth of some kind, and it's a little bit harder for those not in that space. And we could do more, and let's get creative. Like let's do something cool.
So what does that look like for the next 2 years? I know you guys have a new grant, you're working on a new campaign. I'm not sure how much you can share, but what's going to happen?
So we're going to be focused on promoting the region to 16 to 29-year-olds. We want kids to go to college here. There's so much interesting stuff happening at the colleges. And I think, like Keene State has the Speedy program. They're hoping to launch like a 1-year sort of shorter program to get people into manufacturing, which I think is really interesting. It would be particularly interesting if they allow those people to continue living on campus, just throwing that out there, for another 3 years, because it buys some time till we can have more housing stock for them when they graduate. So we'll be focused on that. And then we'll be focused on it's like I said before, I really want to highlight the other opportunities here. 38% of people graduating from high school, they don't go to college. And I want to do like an awesome job fair, innovative, that they can come to and just be like, here are your options. There's a lot here for you. And these are people who could potentially live at home. I just really like the idea of young people building wealth at a time that's been notoriously difficult for them to do so.
And I think that is maybe a much easier ask, right? Is like keeping people here rather than asking other people to move here.
Yeah, or people within 45 minutes, right? There's a lot of, even one of the things that I was looking at are, where do people commute from? There are a decent amount of people who commute from Greenfield, Massachusetts. Like it proved to me I need to think more open-minded about what are we recruiting for?
I was just talking to Adam Baruch. I think he was on here a couple episodes ago. And one of the things he said is, well, people drive to Western Mass for food, right? They go to Northampton. Unlike nobody drives from Northampton to Keene to eat, even though, we have a very diverse set of great restaurants. And I think we are just in a way, we're not on anybody's map.
Yeah.
Like Brattleboro used to be, right? Now it's people have different feelings about it, but it used to be that people came to Brattleboro because
there are a couple of restaurants. I'll Peter Havens till I die, man.
Yes, but that's Keene's not on the map for food, and it's not really on the map for a day trip.
No, it's a great point. So that's, to me, that's where we kind of need to punch this up a little bit more.
Cool. So let's switch gears a little bit. All the things that the region has to offer better than anybody else. And so what the hell do you do on the weekend?
So I'm not going to talk about what I actually do on the weekend because I have 2 kids. I drive people around on the weekends. There are a couple things that I do that and then this is also not the time it's March.
No, pretend it's July. Pretend the kids are with the grandparents.
No. The kids can be home.
Okay,
because that's fine. July is great. Okay, so a perfect weekend. I'm going to include stuff that they'll love, that I'll love, all that kind of stuff. So there might be a Swamp Bats game, which will mean that I will give my daughter $10 and God knows what she's buying at the snack thing. And then my other daughter is going to get all worked up about doing the races that they do. And that'll be fun. And maybe it's the 4th of July and maybe we're seeing the fireworks. And then on Saturday mornings, I love Everglow Wellness. It's really nice to go to a yoga class on a Saturday morning and then maybe meet my sister for brunch somewhere in Keene would be an amazing day.
What's your favorite brunch spot?
I can't pick a favorite. That would be not cool.
Yeah.
There's really a lot of places we'll go to. We'll go to 21, we'll go to the Stage, we'll go to a number of different places. I tried Yellow Bell recently. I got the kale salad with the steak. It was really good. So it's too hard to choose a favorite. So this is gonna be a long. This is gonna be like a 48-hour Friday weekend situation. Maybe that afternoon we go to Spofford Lake. I love Spofford Lake. and we're hanging out and the kids run into friends. That's my favorite part of Spofford Lake. It's always run into someone they know. It's like the most cliche, like summertime experience. And also it's like 45 cents for like a popsicle there. It's like inflation didn't happen at the snack shack.
That's the high Spofford property taxes subsidize.
Yeah, subsidize the snacks. So I would rent a paddleboard, and maybe my husband would rent a kayak there as well. So that would be a super fun afternoon. And then honestly, probably just dinner at home, grilling, right? And then we have Sunday. We're doing the whole long weekend. I love also to drive around. I love going to like the Harrisville General Store, another fantastic kale salad. And I also really love going over to Peterborough. Bowerbird is just like such an awesome store. And then there's a Grove and Main Antiques that I love going into. I have a little girl that's like a shopper. And it can be like nerve wracking walking into an antique store with like a little kid. Like, like some owners are like, "Argh," and all of them like make it like magical. And I swear to God, Lucy has talked in the woman that owns Grove and Main has probably given my kid like $30 in free stuff. Like, or my daughter will be like, oh, I just love this little soap so much. She's just like, just take it. But I love it. It's super fun. I heard they make French fries at Harlow's now, so I would throw that in because my kid loves French fries. And then the Hancock, it's now called the Inn at Hancock. They've just reopened. I would want to work that in some way with my husband, like a dinner there. Really, really nice, really good. I had a lobster dish there a couple weeks ago, and it was awesome. I've heard good things about the brunch too.
Okay, kale salad.
Yeah,
and then there should be the Julie Schoelzel kale salad tour. Oh my God!
Of the Monadnock region. In New York City, my office was located across from this place called City Bakery. It's not there anymore, and they made this kale salad that I just ate all the time. Okay. It's so good. Anyway.
Yeah, if only you knew somebody working in restaurants to make you the perfect kale salad.
Well, now Adam is on it.
Yeah.
And I feel like a bike ride on the rail trail has to get in there somewhere.
Yeah.
So fun.
Agreed.
Maybe a horse lesson over at Farwell Farm for the kids. That's nice too. But, again, we're jamming too much into this. But that
sounds beautiful. I mean, I think, and plus, I mean, you did a great job going around the entire region. Which I have to say, like, Peterborough is never on my map. It's like,
have you ever been?
Oh, of course I've been, but like it's like the wrong direction always.
Peterborough is like, my sister and I will go every now and then, and it's like a little mini vacation. Like, you go in those beautiful shops. They have that art gallery that has like crazy, art, like, 17th century Dutch. Like, you're just like, what is going on in here? And then you go to the Waterhouse. You just feel like you're like, I'm totally on vacation right now for 3 hours. Plus, you always run into someone which is always kind of funny. And Toadstool. Oh yeah, Toadstool's a part of the perfect weekend.
It's a busy perfect weekend.
It is busy.
But I mean, this is what it's about. So it's anybody can like pick out their tourism tips. Is that like, do you have a column?
Oh, I'm going to take that though. Brand Julie's, that tourism tips.
Yeah, Julie's tourism tips.
Yeah. Not right now, but I will. I always loved the idea, even in my old job, which was in tourism. Like, how like on Sex and the City, like back in the day, people would be
I don't like just like putting this out there. I don't. But in season 3,
when it first came on, like people would be like, I'm like Carrie, and like people would identify with different characters. That always really stuck out to me of building campaigns around people and being like, oh, I see myself in her and all that kind of stuff. So it is something we try to do it with the Thrive Guide when, we have all those interviews that we have, because I do think it's real. Like, you want to.
Well, yeah, that's why I asked, because I think it's really, I don't know, we're like on episode 9, 10, 11 here, and I have learned about so many new places.
Don't you want to do, this is the problem with my job. It's like I come home and I'm like, to my husband, I'm like, well, we're crafting at Frog Brewery first, and then we're heading. And he's like, what? He's like, we have to do taxes.
He's like, taxes, laundry, cooking, shopping.
Totally. I'm like, whatever.
Fair. Well, thank you, Julie.
You're very welcome.
If people want to reach out to you, give you money, or other fun things that you need to do your job even better, how can they reach you?
Best thing is to email me, which is Julie, Julie, at greatermonadnock.com. It's nice to do this interview here because I don't have to spell Monadnock.
There you go. Yeah, fair. Well, thank you.
Thank
Appreciate
you
it.
very much.
Well, that was a great conversation. We hope you enjoyed this episode. If you did, please leave us a nice review wherever you're listening to this. It really means the world. Our episodes drop every other Friday, so stay tuned for more insightful chats from It's Freitag.